It's one of them illustrations, she said. What illustrations, I say. One of them things, that's different from what it should be. Weird but nice. There's lots of illustrations, I tell her. World's full of them. She looks at me, and I can see she's getting annoyed. But what can you do when somebody's talking rubbish? She said they told her, they being the staff. When I said I still wasn't sure what she meant, I thought she was going to blow her top. She can be like that, our Edie. Oh, you are annoying. You know exactly what I mean, she snaps. A magic trick like that Houdini used to do. That's him, like Houdini. Houdini was an escapologist, not an illustrator, I tell her. That's when she starts shouting. She's always got confused. She used to tell everybody that she had to be a ventriloquist to clean her windows. They were the sort that open from the top and kind of swing round. You could clean both panes without even stepping outside. Good job, really. Edie lived on the 7th floor. Oliver Twist, she says next. What about him, I ask. He was one. He was an orphan, I tell her. We weren't orphans. I know we weren't. Don't talk daft, she says. Honestly, it's enough to make a saint cry dealing with her sometimes. Copperfield. David Copperfield, that's who it is, she says. According to her, he comes to see her every night. So I tell her he was an orphan too, I think. Can't actually remember the story. She gets really cross then and starts on about him doing tricks. Then I remember. I'm thinking of the book David Copperfield and she's meaning the Hippodrome one. We went to see him in town years back. You mean an illusionist, don't you? David Copperfield, the illusionist. We're both laughing now and she's nodding. I start talking about the night we went to see him. It was ever so good. I can't remember what he did, but I do remember us enjoying it and saying he was really entertaining. We went for fish and chips afterwards. He was quite a looker now I think on. I'm about to nudge Edie's arm, but I notice she shut her eyes. She's only gone and fallen asleep. A little bit of dribble is making its way down her chin and I wipe it off with a tissue. She's a year younger than me, Edie is. Our mum named her Edith. Even so, we've always called her Edie. Everybody has. Apparently, it means rich in war. Not that she's rich or that she's ever been to war. Neither of us have. We were too young when the war started, though we were just about old enough when it finished. When I say just about old enough, I mean grown up enough to spot the Yanks when they came to town. They were handsome. Not that they ever bothered with us, not so as you'd notice anyway. We tried our best to get their attention, especially Edie. Mam said she was acting like a lady of the night. She told Edie off. She said she was cheap throwing herself at them. I laughed and said to Mam that I'd never seen any ladies in the night throwing themselves at Yanks. I got a clip round the ear for it. Our Mam could land you a clout before you knew she'd moved. She'd have been shocked at how things have turned out. We had to put her in a home. Edie, not Mam. She died years ago. I look at her hair all dull and lank. They should wash it more often. Make it look nice. She took a pride in her appearance, our Edie did. She had black hair back then, shiny as polished shoes. When she got older, she dyed it black. It would grow out and she'd have a thick line of grey hair before the black started. And I'd say to her, get your hair dyed, it looks a mess. And she would. She'd have black round the edge of her face for days after till it washed off. She's completely grey now. I don't think she knows. She never says. I touch her hair and she wakes up. She smiles and looks at me just like she did when we were young. She leans towards me. Don't tell them. And she cranks her head toward the door. He says my hair is my crowning glory. Who says that, I ask? I look at the state of her and I wonder who could possibly think it. She leans in again. Him, David Copperfield, what does the illusion, she says. She tells me he appears every night to say she's beautiful and to give her a cuddle. She's like this sometimes, coming out with stuff that can't be true. You'll be getting confused, Edie, love. Imagining it, I tell her. I am not, and I can prove it, she says. She goes over to her bed and pulls a handkerchief from beneath the pillow. It's a man's. Written in biro in the corner are the initials DC. She says he's got a bit of asthma and he keeps it there for when he visits. Turns out it isn't an illustration or escapology. It isn't even an illusion, it's happening in real life. A man from the floor above is coming down to see her. They get in bed together and have a cuddle. It's the staff who've been telling her she's imagining it. Apparently he's done it before and the home are trying to keep it under wraps. It's him who says it's an illusion. Can't tell you how furious I was. I said I'd be writing to the council to tell them what was going on. But our Edie stopped me. She said it was an illusion because she dreamt it and then he came to her. She said she was being a lady of the night. It's a cuddle, she said. Just a cuddle. You wouldn't deny me that, would you? I gave her a big cuddle when I left that day, and she whispered in my ear that he's the better.
An end to innocence. They stand embraced, framed by a sea of buttercups, happy, carefree, imbued with the joy of summer. Locks, boats, and pub lunches their delight. Ahead lies a precipice of adulthood, responsibilities, the chance to fail. Though differences will separate them, this time will be their unseen bond. And what of the viewer? What substance is tears? They're real enough, for time can neither be bought nor returned. The best days cannot be picked and frozen and defrosted for a late supper. But this day will live on in the memory of the photographer, the poet, reflecting upon their golden sea of buttercups until God knows when. At a toddler's grave. Duck days are all you knew, sand pits and splashes in the bath. I am so old now that the memories fade, even the fondest moments. Duck days and innocent smiles remind me there are many good reasons to be alive. Leaving some kindness and laughter behind should be as natural as sharing a 2-year-old's purest love. And here by the church, a bittersweet, beautiful shrine. The air around a decorated headstone seems infused with love, and the carefully arranged toys echo a brief life in celebration. The Encourager. Ascension Day, and I am taken to the stars within sight of your love. You're waiting with your contented smile as I approach. You say, well done, thou true and faithful. Only mother greets me so, and as ever she bids me pick fruit. We have returned 40 years to our garden. I collect 2 bowls of raspberries, one for the fridge and the other for stewing. Stewed raspberries and ice cream, as only mother made. And, as we eat, I return to the present, the sweet mixture left on my lips, and that encouraging greeting embossed on my soul. Well done, thou true and faithful.
It's because of the old prophecy about someone coming to reverse our fortunes. Someone like you, Oswald.
What do you mean?
Look, Oswald, the island, Idle Green, belonged to my family for generations. It was a beautiful, lush landscape. Everything grew here until Judge Butterworth took everything for his estate. We hardly grow a thing.
Ash is the currency of this place, and what's left of it is on Butterworth's land.
As you can see, on the other side of the island, even Blight's place is rich with wheat and fruit trees. He won't starve.
I wish he would. He's Butterworth's little weasel. He's not getting his hands on me.
You can see the judge's mansion and grounds from here too. Look, fields of vines and orchards.
What I don't understand is why you send people to watch me. How can I be a threat to him?
I think you do know something, don't you?
I just know I'm lucky to be alive.
Tell him about Mrs. Clacker's mum.
Over there, near Hook Head, is an old cottage. Mrs. Clackers lives there. She's a mysterious lady. She used to work for the judge. I think she knows more than she's let on about my husband, Daniel. You see, he disappeared many years ago, and Bella and I have run the business together ever since. Mrs. Clackers knows things, and they're all watching us, Oswald.
Butterworth has a telescope on his balcony. I've seen it.
And most of his tour farmers have spyglasses.
Even Blight has an old telescope poking out of the roof.
It's time to go. Bella, you've got work to do.
Oswald, there are clocks in homes around the island which need to be wound every week without fail. The clocks have 13 dials and your initials.
I want to see this.
I don't need your help, thank you.
Bella, let him go with you and watch.
Mom.
Bella and Oswald leave the shop and are followed by a warden who scribbles into a notebook. Bella sees them and stops, trying to control her anger.
Look, Mr. Warden, I'm just going to wind the clocks and Oswald needs some air. Follow us if you must.
Sorry, Miss Bella. Just carrying out the judge's orders to keep an eye on you.
Come on, Oswald, let's get on then.
They arrive at first house clock.
Now, look, this first clock has 12 working dials. The lower dials are the sea and land for seasons of planting, growing and reaping. The upper dials are constellations, suns, moons and stars. They exist in a different realm, but their influence is inescapable. And they exert forces beyond the power of human beings.
People ask me, are you the one who's written on the clocks? Have you come to save us from catastrophe? Or are you just a silly boy? There's a strange new star up in the sky. You dreamed about it, shout it in your sleep. Soon we all will see it in the daylight. That would mean the prophecy is true. It's been a tradition in our family. Each afternoon for a small fee, we wind the clocks. Take time to all the pressure points and wind the clocks. We do it for these folk. Wind the clocks. Make the wheels turn silently while counting up the hours to midnight. Following our ancestors' rules. Twist the other anchor till the tick-tock is an even beat. Do it right, the hands should meet. If the clock won't strike, though you cleaned it out and you wind it well, still it stops and locks. The great wheel holds and the hands won't touch. Need more oil on its gears and wheels. And you do it twice, so the time clock mounts. If the clock does strike, it will strike you up down the spiral stairs. It will ring its chime, loudly ending our timeless fears. With this clock there comes a local legend to watch out for the 13th dial. It will warn us of the stalking curly lane. The alarm has not gone off before. Just wind the clocks, but watch out for the 13th dial. Yes, wind the clocks. We do it for these folk. Wind the clocks. The wheels turn silently while counting up the hours till midnight, following our ancestors' rules. Twist the upper anchor till the tick-tock is an even beat. Do it right, the hands should meet. There are 12 full dials that display the time, make the island tick as the hands they climb. For the clocks still work, keeping steady time. They will bring us back the breath of life, breath of life. There is planting time, there is growing time, there is reaping time, and there's harvest time. This is tidal time, this is solar time, and they bring us all the breath of life, breath of life. Wind the clocks and watch out for the 13th time. We wind the clocks.
It was the hottest summer for years. Smudged over most of his face was a mess of ice cream and raspberry sauce. His chubby brown arms ran sticky with the rivulets of melting ice cream. My child could have been mistaken for the victim of a horrendous accident. Either that or someone who had taken part in a bloodlust thriller. He always messed about with his food. Even a treat like this. Sitting at his buggy, he waved the cone around. While Blue, our beautiful, gentle golden Labrador, sat patiently alongside the pram. He waited for his moment. For a final time, the too appetizing treat came dangling in front of his nose. Hardly moving a muscle, the dog's tongue stretched out, curled around the cornet, and in one smooth movement, the ice cream, raspberry sauce, and cone were gone. It dawned on my little one in that moment, as he waved an empty hand back towards his mouth, that food was most definitely not for playing with.
This has become the best moment of my day, watching Willow run free across the field. We both felt the stir in the air today as I led her out from the stable. Chill of an early April morning teased around our faces, the scent of fresh starts. She lifted her head, flared her nostrils, jiggled and tugged beside me. I had to stretch up high to unclip her head collar at the gate. And the moment she was free, she was gone, turning on her heel, bounding away, bucking and kicking across the grass. I should be heading back to the house, getting ready for work. But 5 minutes won't hurt. I'll just lean here on the gate to watch the mares. Only for a bit. After last night, I deserve a moment for myself. There is something very soothing about the wood pigeons cooing from beyond the field. There's a bright green fuzz on the tree branches that have been bare for so long. Feels like everything is moving on this morning. But Willow's mother and the others don't seem troubled by it. They barely look up from the grass as she hurtles past to the bottom of the field. They ignore the way she spins on her hind feet, then gallops back up through the three of them. They tolerate her excesses remarkably well. What are they thinking as they watch her? Did she take them back to a time when they were 2-year-olds? Are they remembering how it was when the waft of a spring breeze sang of excitement and change. I loved that feeling once, in the days when I thought the song was for me. David said I shouldn't breed another foal. We've got too many horses already, he said. There's more than you can cope with as it is. We almost let ourselves have an argument over it. But marriage breeds unexpected skills. Well, ours has anyway. After all the years of practice, David and I have become pretty neat at sidestepping when too much emotion looks like brewing up. It's bad enough, he said. The girls shooting off without a backward glance, dumping us with their horses. The last thing we need is another one. At least that time he didn't say that if it were up to him, 3 bullets would do the trick. He has learnt what happens when he says things like that. I tried to explain to him why I needed this new life. But when I talked about having something young and beautiful to nurture and to love, his eyes slid away. Love, like killing the horses, is something that we do not discuss. In the end, I told him Willow was an accident. Her mother went on a little holiday for some reschooling and came back pregnant. He played along, accepted that it was as big a shock to me as it was to him. It was a time when he had other things on his mind. Willow's rolling now, a flurry of golden legs and swishing orange tail. I really don't have time to watch. I should get back. I'm going to be so late for work. Now she's back on her feet, shaking her head, mane flapping round neck and ears. It won't be long now before she settles with the herd. I'll just wait to see that. I like to watch the way she sidles still towards her mother. The two of them pair off, grazing side by side, a little apart from the others. I'm desperately proud of the girls, the job in the city, the research papers, the court cases. Of course I am. But I would trade them all for a daughter who stood at my shoulder in that simple recognition of a bond. David told me 3 months ago that he had stopped seeing her. I told myself not to believe him, but some part of me must have thought he was telling the truth. Otherwise, why did last night come as such a shock? There was no mistaking her perfume on his skin when he sailed in at nearly midnight with some tale of a panic at work. I didn't know what to say. I just poured him a whiskey and offered to make a sandwich. In another month, it will be summer. That's what I should be thinking about. The girls might come home for a weekend or 2. They'll surely want to see how Willow is growing. I'll work with her anyway. It's time I started to teach her the compromises life demands. The sun's warm on my back now. but the air still holds that false promise of change. I wasted far too much time watching Willow cavorting around the field, running wild in the spring air. Now she's settled with the herd. She gets impatient with them when they won't play with her. But in the end, she knows they are her family, that she belongs with them. I can still remember how good belonging used to feel.
Bittersweet. Lined up neatly, spherical jars, guarantors of obesity, comforters in sadness. I remember the scales rising. 1, 2, 3, then the magic quarter of the sweet shop. Joy of joys, rainbow crystals, Parma violets, so many names for sugar. The romantic memories remain, beautiful round top bottles, strain and stress forgotten in a self-indulgent haze. Fading. She stares through glassy eyes, straining to connect sights, words and thoughts with failing memory. I'm cold, she explains, accurate as sad, for the room is warm and a lamb's wool cardigan clings tight. Where am I? A fair question, but she has not moved for months, nor is she far from home. Why me? She asks. But there are no answers sufficient to explain the poverty born by age. Garage. Quiet haven, comforting corner, aging tools and wood, like myself, years between uses. Here is my solace and sanctuary. Here I have come to draw breath, to find fresh peace and resolve. People wonder why it takes so long for me to find things, not realising what little time I spend looking.
They grow from May till November now, any time at all. You can find them in the supermarket, stacked upon the wall. Fruits from countries round the world, strawberries and sloes, but my favourite of them all is the great Russian rose. Wikipedia tells me most will come from Russian lands. Then there's Mexico and Serbia or Spain to reach our hands. Rose-coloured wine with Rubus idius, Articus or blue. Heritage Latham Prelude can be in other colours too. Raspberry juice made from the fruit, raspberry sauce, tooty toot toot, raspberry sauce, raspberry sauce. Red early summer, midsummer late, purple and black, bread in a cake. I prefer pudding to fish and fries. Perennial roots, not perennial shoots, 100 drupelets on every berry. Go off and program your raspberry pies. Raspberry sauce, raspberry sauce, raspberry sauce, raspberry sauce, raspberry sauce. That's what I like. Raspberry sauce, raspberry sauce, raspberry sauce, raspberry sauce, raspberry sauce, raspberry sauce.
I was drawing back the front room curtains when I first noticed how she opened that window. I thought naught about it then. But when I saw her do it again the following week and the week after, quite late in the day, about 3:30 if I remember rightly, I was curious. Why is she opening that window so late in the day, I thought. Then I realised that she opens it to the same point every time. Strange how she always opens that window just the same few inches. I said it to no one in particular because Peter was engrossed in his newspaper. I looked at him sitting there, as he always does, drinking his tea and thoughtlessly putting his mug down on the table, missing the coaster completely. Why can't you ever use that coaster, I said. You put rings all over that table. But he didn't take any notice. Did you hear what I said about her over the road? What about her, he said. She's at it again. At what again? He didn't look up from the newspaper. Opening that window again, like she always does. But all he said was, "It's a warm day, what do you expect?" "It's a warm day," I said. "She's always opening it, no matter what the weather." He just said, "For heaven's sake, Millie, there's no law against letting fresh air into your house." But he doesn't notice things like I do. I'm beginning to think she might have a reason to be opening that window just so much. Makes you wonder if she might be letting more than fresh air into that house. It could be a sign. I'm saying nothing, mind you, but it's just that I've noticed that she opens it on certain days. "Warm ones," he said sarcastically, when I dared mention it to him. "And not so warm ones," I said. "Suspicious, that's what I call it." He laughed, and I said, "Well, you might well laugh, but I see more than you do. You're no judge of character." "Do I need to be a judge of character to have an opinion on an open window?" he said. There's probably a purpose behind that open window. I think she could be letting someone know her husband's out. Well, some women will do anything for a man. He stirred a bit when I said that, made out he didn't know what I meant, and said she was a nice woman. He called her Fran. "Fran's a nice woman." That's what he actually said. "And what do you know about her?" I asked. He said Ken told him she's lovely. Well, he has to say that, doesn't he? He's married to her, I said. But he just got up and went into the kitchen to make another cup of tea. "I'll have one," I shouted after him. "And you mark my words, there's something not right in that house." The following week she was at it again. Always on a Saturday. Well, sometimes she does it of a Sunday, but every Saturday, like clockwork. Round about the time the postie delivers his letters. It's always open to the same point, to a little mark on the window frame. It looks like a blue mark, like it's been put there deliberately. I didn't notice that at first. There could be a message in that mark. When I told Peter what I thought, he was just as awkward as he always is. Wanted to know why she would be leaving messages on a window frame. Well, that's the thing, isn't it? I said. I'd ask for who. We can assume why. But he kept on saying she was not that sort of woman. Threw his paper down when I asked him how he knew what sort of a woman she is. She hardly mixes with anyone. Keeps herself to herself, does that one. No one knows what she does. What does anybody need to know, he said. It's her own business what she does. And who would know what she does, I asked myself. She never speaks to anyone. I'm convinced there's something going on over there. Ken, her husband, he's a good sort of chap. I don't know what he sees in that one. He's not a well man, really. That much we know from the way he looks. You know, thin, tired and bedraggled. Maybe it's because she is looking after somebody else. You can't make assumptions like that, Peter said. He was quite cross. Why else would she be leaving signs, I asked him. She's just opening a window for fresh air, he said. We'll see about that. Oh, behold, I saw my Peter outside her house talking to her one Tuesday morning. They walked off together down the street. When I questioned him, he said he was asking how Ken was doing. I said, "It took you a long time to ask that." And, of course, I asked him why he went off with her. He shrugged his shoulders and said they were just going in the same direction. We haven't seen Ken a lot recently. Apparently he's not doing so good at all. It's not easy, I suppose, when you're as bad as he is. Peter asked her if Ken was getting the help he needed, but he was told, "You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink." Well, that's typical of her, isn't it? Well, Peter says Ken is his own worst enemy. Even at school, apparently. Always coming up against the teachers. Wouldn't take anyone's advice. But they were going to play golf together at the weekend, if Ken felt up to it. But he didn't. He had a really bad headache. Did you know? I thought. I saw her yesterday in Sainsbury's buying wine. It looked like she was with a man. I was at the deli counter. When I told Peter, he said, "Did this man have a black coat on and a blue scarf?" I said, "Well, couldn't see him very well. His back was turned, but yes, he did." Then he said I needed new glasses because it was himself talking to her. My husband talking to that one in a supermarket? Well, naturally, I asked him why he was with her, but he just said he wasn't, and that he was buying wine too, and that they just happened to be in the same queue. I said, "Stop talking to that one or you'll get yourself a bad name." He was speechless, so I think something got through to him. I told him, if anyone sees you together, they might think you're the one she's carrying on with. He got annoyed then, and as he picked up his paper, he said, "Well, I'm not. And she's not carrying on with anyone. For God's sake, woman, what have you got against her?" I said, "Why are you defending her? What do you know about anything?" He said, "Nothing, and that's about as much as you know. I'm going out." And he slammed the door as he left. It's a strange world we live in. Jan, who lives next door to her across the road, said there was a right kerfuffle going on one night. It was that bad Jan had to knock on the door. She opened it, but Jan said Ken was raging round the house and it looked like he was going crazy. Perhaps he's found out about that window. I told Peter, but he made a deep sigh and said, "All right, Millie, I'll tell you what's going on. Ken is a raving alcoholic, and that poor woman is trying to deal with the fallout of his drunken sprees. She's not having an affair with anyone, and especially not with me. But I wouldn't blame her if she did, even if Ken is my friend. He's been leading her a right dance." "That doesn't mean she's not leaving signs for someone," I said. He got right cross and said, "She opens the window to get rid of the smell of ale and whiskey after he's been on a binge, that's all. There's nothing else, nothing sinister, it's all in your mind." "And what about the blue marker?" I asked him. "Did I imagine that?" "A sticker that one of her kids put on the frame to decorate it when they were small." I went into the kitchen and filled the kettle. Ken's disappeared off the scene now. Peter said he went on another binge last Friday and completely trashed the place before he left. "Well," I said, "people don't become alcoholic for nothing." He banged his cup down on the table and I winced, but I said nothing. Then he stood up and put his coat on, saying that he was going over to see if he could do anything to help. "I'm not happy about that," I said, but he did it anyway. I watched him through the window as he carried out 3 bin bags full of bottles and cans. It's over a month now and Ken's still not back, and Peter's not heard a thing from him. And Peter started coming home late from work these past couple of weeks. He's been behaving very oddly, smiling a lot more than he used to. This morning he was over there again, helping her. I went into the spare room and found his suitcase in there, half packed. I thought, that's strange, why is he doing that? Then I thought he might be going on a business trip because he'd ironed his shirts as well. I normally do that, so I wondered why he'd done it himself. I made a note to myself to ask him about it when I came home. Then I went to Sainsbury's. When I got back, he'd obviously been home because there was a mug on the table, on a coaster no less. I went upstairs just to double check, but he wasn't in. And neither was the suitcase. Gone. No goodbye. Just gone, leaving his mug for me to clear away. I was just about to take it into the kitchen when I saw the note. It didn't say sorry, just that he'd left. Said he was moving on and that I'd manage okay without him because I never took any notice of him anyway. I looked across the road. That window was tight shut, and so were the curtains.
I put him in the room with the candles and the lumpy mattress, just what a special one deserves.
Oswald, don't worry about your father. I'm sure he'll be all right.
Window scene.
Look, there's a star.
It'll be a comet. A sure sign of your visit, Oswald. Things will get better for all of us. I know it.
Eyes, goes to sleep, starts to dream and shout out in his sleep.
Watch the skies. A new star. Look, a new star.
I've survived the storm and found my refuge here. I'm so unsure what I should do. This is my chance to start out on my own. A second chance won't come my way. My future is controlled by life's demands. I follow meekly, can't let go. Perhaps this time there is some hope for me to find a destiny of my own. Have I found a safe haven? I see happiness here. In the chaos they found me, I have nothing to fear. I know I need a life that these strangers have promised. And as I make a start, I see they can shelter my heart. This is a new beginning, but what should I do? Something is telling me I won't be leaving. Decisions once made, there's no going back. I'm glad that I'm here. This world is my own. I have found a safe haven. Can it be a sure sign? A sign of the future, when the stars will align. I know I need a life that this island has promised. And as I make a start, I know they can shelter my heart. Yes, as I make a start, I know they will shelter my heart.
Before this COVID thing started, I used to sit and watch the ducks on the river. They were my companions. I even gave them names. Donald, of course, and Daffy, obviously. But my favourite was Puddle. He was such a character. I can't make out which one he is now. I'm having a lovely time while we're in lockdown. I watch children in the park, the parents standing around chatting, all socially distanced, mind. I see people as they go on their exercise walks. They notice me sitting on my balcony and they wave. Some even stop for a chat. It's like having a part in Romeo and Juliet with them calling up to me. Funny how they all seem to keep to similar times, sort of a routine thing. It does amuse me. But best of all is that we've become friends. Every morning one of the residents in the flats comes and knocks on my door just to check if I'm all right. They ask if I need anything from the shops. I say I do every day, even though usually I don't. But I think they might not come back if I say no. I ask for a newspaper or a magazine because they're not heavy to carry. I have to say I look forward to that contact. The village shop does deliveries too. Mandy, the girl who brings my groceries, oh, she's lovely. Most days I make us a cup of coffee and I sit in my hall with the front door open and she sits in a chair. I leave it on the back corridor and that way we can talk. She's a smashing lass, so friendly and happy to chat. She says a reminder of her granny. She's never in a rush. She says she always has time for me. I wish I had a daughter like her. We never had a girl, me and Dougie. We got a son, Brian. Don't get me wrong, he's a good lad, our Brian. Did my shopping every fortnight before all this happened. Trouble is, he can never stop long when he comes over. He runs his own company. Not exactly sure what he does, but he's very busy. He complains because of the drive from Sheffield. That's where he lives. It's difficult for him. He says his Mercedes doesn't suit the roads in Derbyshire. I guess that's because his car is big and the lanes round here are so narrow. He complains about the parking too, although the flats have a car park. So he can usually get in there. He's a good lad, though, to do that for me. During this lockdown, Mandy's brought me fresh bread whenever I want it. Usually I just get the one white sliced a fortnight, and to be honest, it's a bit curly round the edges and past its best after 2 weeks. But our Brian always says he couldn't get out more often, and I wouldn't expect it of him. There's nothing like fresh bread, is there? Mandy brings me different ones to try. It was a raisin and raspberry ciabatta one day. Delicious. After that, she brought a fig and walnut sourdough. We had a slice of it with our coffee that morning. We did enjoy it. When we clap for the NHS, I step out onto my balcony and I do it from here. I'm only on the first floor, but the lift keeps breaking, so I can't go down. Doesn't stop people calling to me, though. It's lovely because everyone is so friendly, and with not working or working at home, they have time to chat. Brian had to work from home during lockdown, and of course, because of the rules, he couldn't come out to see me or do my shopping. I did leave him a phone message saying he needn't worry as I'd got people helping me. He must have got the gist because he didn't ring me for over a month. Mandy's gone back to work now, and the shop isn't doing deliveries anymore. It's a shame, but I know everyone's busy. Mandy says she'll come and see me when she gets her act together. I told her I'll look forward to it, love. She's not been yet, but I'm sure she'll come soon. Our Brian called earlier with my shopping. He says things are going crazy work-wise, and he's thinking might be better if he just came out once a month. I said I don't mind, whatever's best for him. He was grumbling again because the lift still isn't working. He says I should get onto the committee, but to be honest, you never see any of them now. They've all gone back to work. Isn't it funny? Everyone's relieved now that the COVID is all but over now we've all had our vaccine. Life's getting back to normal for everybody. People aren't coming to the park as much, so there's nobody to wave to. I do miss them all. There's Puddle Duck. Bless him, I wave. He doesn't wave back, obviously. I'm just a daft old bird. I must be the only person in the world missing the pandemic.
I was bathing my little granddaughter one day, playing around with her in the bath. Then I picked her out, wrapped her in a lovely warm fluffy towel, and gave her a cuddle, carried her into the bedroom and laid her on the bed. I finished drying her, and we laughed and giggled, and I tickled her. And then I thought, I think I'll blow a raspberry on that beautiful little tummy. And so I did. And when I looked up, she looked startled, and she called, Mummy! Grandma's spitting on my belly!
London Pride. London prices, don't dare try to buy our houses. We're superior, can't you see? We're all you really want to be. We've got chateaux, we've got villas, out in Spain, exotic places. We've got Crossrail and Heathrow, restaurants, theatres, the places to go. Saudi princes, oligarchs, show off their Gucci in our parks. Northern power, don't make us laugh. Don't brag about your glorious past. You're lucky we don't chop you down and send you off to Scotland town. Neighbours teach us how to grow. I remember Den's face, cheerful voice and kindly smile. A reliable, loving routine. His father's garden, fortnightly till dark. Runners are swamp plants, Den told me. Put the hosepipe on and forget them. So 30 years on, I do forget. Inside writing verse, whilst the raised beds flood, watering weeds and grass. No water meter for poets growing beans, nor forgetting advice from past neighbours. Here's to my most helpful occasional companion. To you, I will eat my beans and pass on the wisdom. You gave me nothing except friendship and a healthy tea. Our futile chatter made life better. Your simple life, not lived in vain. Slavery, our Holocaust. 6 million people, we cry, due to evil died. 8 million souls centuries before were starved, whipped and stripped of all. 3 trillion pounds we made, built great cathedrals, exalted trade, sure that God was on our side as we propelled the human tide. Later we recanted of everything but the cash we counted.
I watch the television more than I used to, mostly news and documentaries. I suppose it's an effect of lockdown. It was the third tranche of lockdown, when it was all getting very scary, that got me wondering about how much we really know of what goes on around us. I'm so bored with reading, doing crosswords, and cleaning my bedroom for the umpteenth time. Well, to be honest, it was probably the first time I'd ever cleaned it properly. My mum said to me at the start of the first lockdown, I think I'll take the opportunity of giving the house a good clean while I can't go anywhere. I thought, I think I'd take the opportunity not to. Who's going to see it for 3 months? But then it got so full of lager cans and crisp packets that even I got off my arse and started cleaning. I listen to the news more than I ever did now, mainly to keep myself in the COVID-19 guideline frame. The pandemic led every news bulletin back then, and it's not much different now. And then there were the briefings from the government every day at 5 p.m. At the height of it, the amount of people that got infected over a 24-hour period was frightening. The numbers who have died is terrifying. So I got a bit glued to the news. TV and radio, COVID watching. My dad listens to the news every time it's aired, all day long. I come into the dining room and he's standing motionless by the radio. He stands there for ages, unmoving, hands in pockets. I say to him, "What are you doing, Dad?" "I'm listening to the news." "Have you got a short memory? Why do you have to listen to it 20 times a day?" He says, "I like listening to it." And I say, "But it's the same thing every time. It doesn't change." He just shrugs. Donald Trump shenanigans were in the news a lot in the run-up to the US presidential election. I must admit, some of the things that come out of that man's mouth are hilarious. Could we maybe imbibe bleach? It certainly makes me laugh. Well, Trump's gone now. Out of the back door, literally. When President Biden made his inaugural address, it was full of appeals for unity and healing, and he pledged to build up the middle class again. I didn't hear him mention by name the homeless or the poor, but I'm sure he means well and understands their needs. He did say to all Americans, I get it. I do. I get it. 1 in 6 American citizens are living below the poverty line. It's one of the highest rates of poverty in the developed world, but they're still the richest nation in the world. Trying to understand that anomaly makes my head ache. My dad said, that's what Trump understood. How do you mean? I asked. The dispossessed can be easily aroused if you say the right things. Trump feeds into the desperation of an unequal society. He's right. If societies get too unequal, they start to crumble. Very few academics now believe that the empires fall from some sudden trauma, but rather by a decline from within. It's a sort of decline that leads to internal disruption over a long period of time. At a critical point, when the empire's strength has declined so far, it has less strength to face trauma from the inside or the outside. An insidious canker that runs through the body politic. But I wonder what any of us can know for sure about anything. We're all influenced by so much incoming. Messages start filtering into our minds from the day we're born. In our early years, we accept the views of our families, friends and teachers, almost unaware. And as adults, we chase information that bolsters our views and confirms our beliefs, and we seldom look at what is outside those beliefs. I remember asking my eldest brother, whose acumen I admire, why he was reading a book that was written by someone whose views I knew he didn't agree with. You have to keep an open mind, he said. You need to know what the opposition is thinking. How else can you counter the argument? But looking back on that now, I think maybe this open-minded man was also entrenched in his views. You know, reading the opposition's words to further support his counterposition. Or did he read that book with an open mind? Did he take on board any opposing views? I must ask him what he took away with him from it. I have an old friend who was an ardent socialist in his youth, far to the left. He was criticising Noam Chomsky for marching with the extreme right in America, who were demanding the right to free speech. I asked him why, and he said, "We can't let the right peddle their vile views." But isn't freedom of speech about listening to those we don't agree with? I asked. If we refuse one person the right to free speech, don't we stand in danger of depriving everyone of that right? But he's supporting their bigotry. No, he's supporting the right to free speech, I said. We don't need freedom of speech just for people we agree with. But they're wrong, he said. They're probably just as convinced that you're wrong. How do any of us know that we're fundamentally right? It's hard to move away from the mindset we've built over our lifetime. It's safe, isn't it? That place that holds all our truths and opinions. Whoever really re-examines their own thoughts? I must admit, my own views are pretty entrenched. If we all listen to the news through our own filters, do we then receive a different version of it? There's been a great deal of research on perception, which shows that we subconsciously choose different aspects of a message to focus on, even within seconds of hearing it. Surely that must have an effect on how we listen to the news, or even what's chosen to be reported, and how it's reported. Why isn't the rise in the numbers of hungry children in this country given the prominence of a national disaster? The 25% increase in rough sleepers in 3 months, or the recommencement of evictions, now the pandemic has eased off a bit? If we don't see it, do we believe it doesn't happen? to look at the nasty stuff, it's easier to believe that we live in some sort of soft reality. A protected bubble. Half the time we don't see what's going on in the next shire. We don't know what's going on outside our bubble. We can pretend all's right with the world. We can forget it exists. And if we don't watch documentaries or news programs, where do we learn about what's going on in the world? Young people are turning increasingly to social media for their information, but it seems that people tend to search the internet for sites whose content they agree with. So, despite how much more information is out there, and how much of it is accessed, it might not broaden people's minds or help them become more aware of global issues that might relate to their own lives. The news gives such narrow access to world news. Take a story about a hurricane or an earthquake. A really dangerous one gets reported for a few minutes on the news for maybe a couple of days, and then it disappears, as though the devastation is suddenly resolved. Or that awful explosion at the docks in Lebanon. That was dreadful. The people of that country were suffering enough before that disaster. What's happening there now? Has that suffering stopped? Where did it go? Gone from the news and our minds. Soundbite compassion. When uncomfortable news is gone from our hearing or sight, we can go back to our cosy, safe, sanitized existence. That brings to mind the Egyptians of 4,000 years ago. When the pharaohs wanted to stop their people from believing or following something, they banned the speaking of it for 11 years. They reckoned it took that amount of time to eradicate it from people's consciousness. A few days does that now. I suppose if we don't know what's going on in the wider world, we don't have to have any concern. Like the destitution people are suffering in other countries or in refugee camps. Or, in fact, the 1 million children living in destitution in this country. If it's not talked about, then we can imagine people are okay. Or not there at all. Out of sight, out of mind. We can stay blissfully unaware of the countless numbers of children starving or being maimed in war-torn countries. I've just watched a charity appeal on television. It was asking for money to help children with glaucoma in an African country. I winced at images of children whose eyes were streaming with water, flies crawling all over them. I had a few seconds of a guilty pain when it went off screen. Then I had to push it out of my mind because I knew I wasn't going to send a contribution. Yesterday there was an appeal for endangered animals. I didn't contribute to that either. I think I've got image overload. I weakened a few weeks ago where I saw the terrible cruelty perpetrated on animals and made a donation. I've never done that before. I don't agree with charity. We're a rich country. We shouldn't need charity. But I get sucked in with image persuasion and the inequality over the world that needs addressing. One of the most potent images on the news lately was the desperate situation of the doctors, nurses, and other healthcare workers. They're utterly exhausted and in deep sadness from the relentlessness of the pandemic. I was saying to my friend recently that I'm expecting a mass exodus of nurses and doctors from the NHS when the pandemic reduces, or hopefully disappears. They're all burnt out, probably suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. I said, where are the 50,000 nurses that were supposed to be in the pipeline? She said, oh, don't get me started. What a con that was. I wish there was something I could do. I feel so useless, I said. We should all be trained in the basics of healthcare, she said, so that when we do have a crisis like this, we can be called on to help. I agree. The army should be trained as well, so that they are ready to go to any disaster zone. They're helping now, but it should be a permanent thing. Quite, she answered. We could do without wars. The army could be an international service to help with all manner of things, like disaster assistance. The world's such a mess. Yes, I thought. Existential chaos. Climate change seems to be wreaking havoc all over the globe. That's constantly reported on the news. Earthquakes, floods, fires. Scientific data shows that it's the use of fossil fuels causing the hike in temperature, precipitating change. But is it? There is a counter-argument that it could be a natural weather cycle, thousands of years old, which do occur, but I'm with the fossil fuel argument. But there's always a fundamental question that's left out of climate change discussions. Why are we using all this fuel anyway? Fossil fuel or otherwise. Even if we find another permanent source, what's it for? There's an almost unopposed belief that production is good, and that it is progress to keep on producing, despite the fact that it's raping the earth of its resources. And what do we mean by progress? The production and sale of countless commodity wants, when millions of people need shelter and food? Commodity production needs fuel for the many useless items it creates for profit. That unassailable concept is never questioned. The throwaway society is using up the world's resources and putting it in danger. Or is it just us, humans, that are in danger? I was listening to a couple of guys talking on the bus the other week. It went something like this. I don't believe in God. Where's the proof? But you said you believed in aliens. You can't see or hear them either. Where's that proof? I see your point, but as far as I can see, it won't matter what we believe soon, because at that point, all that'll exist is the Earth. Meaning, we'll all be dead. The Earth's resources will be gone, and we won't be able to survive. The Earth will just go on without us. I don't think so, Billy. If we're dead, the Earth will be dead. No, it won't. It'll always be here. No, the Earth's only Earth because we think about it. Because we think about it. The Earth's real, solid. The planet is real and solid. A lump of rock that floats about in space like any other pile of chemicals and minerals that we call planets. But it won't be the Earth. For it to be Earth, we have to have thought about it and developed an idea of what that is. A concept. Without that idea, it's just a lump of rock in its own unique place in the universe. Oh, Christ, Joey, you're doing my head in. There'll be other life besides us, so Earth will be here for them. That won't make any difference, because animals don't have concepts. What does that mean? Animals don't think. They haven't got that kind of intelligence. Oh, that's just crap. Everyone knows some animals are really clever, like elephants, dolphins, even pigs. Yes, you're absolutely right, but it's a different kind of clever. We can think in concepts. We conjure up ideas of things, visions of things, and believe they're real. Like the Earth. Like God. If you like. Animals don't know what Earth is. They don't know that they're on Earth. They probably have no idea of where, never mind where they are. When humans become extinct, thought will disappear, and so will the Earth. Because that's just a thought too. All that will be left is a lump of rock with no one to call it anything, There'll still be trees, flowers, that sort of thing. There won't. They're just concepts too. If we're not here to call them trees and flowers, they will have no existence. If we're not here, nothing is. Shit. That'd be like we've never existed. Precisely. That's more scary than believing in God. Yep. But look on the bright side. It'll be like we've never destroyed the Earth, because we won't be here to give its destruction a name. Anyway, talking about here, where the fuck are we? Then they got...
There she is. At last. After all those years. The woman who will make everything all right again. I just need to get over there and tell her. I was 18 when the gypsy told me about the raspberry girl. Us 4 lads jostling and joking as we swaggered through the nighttime crowds at the Lammas Fair. We were full of ourselves, out on the prowl. But I paused to watch a girl in a miniskirt, screaming, swirly-headed on the waltzer. All at once, I was alone. That was when the gypsy woman grabbed my arm. "Not that one, my lovely," her voice hissed through the blare of the music from the rides. "She's not the girl for you." I tried to pull my hand away, but she held tight, her face bent over the palm. I smelt the musk of her over the vinegar of fish and chips, the oily stench of the fair motors. "Wait for the raspberry girl." She looked up into my face and her black eyes held mine. "You'll get no peace till you find her." I shrugged the woman off, ran after my mates. Nothing went right after that night. 2 rotten marriages, a boy and a girl I never see, a trail of no-account jobs and failed friendships. I've lost the me who paraded through the fairground. His life waited ahead, untouched, unspoilt. But the gypsy knew what was coming. I've seen since where I went wrong. Idiot that I was. Why did I chase off after the lads? Cut my first line of coke with them in the toilets on South Street. Why didn't I stay with her and make her tell me how to find this raspberry girl? In the last 10 years I've looked everywhere I could think. Wherever there were raspberries. I took a job on a fruit stall assessing picky old dears and flirty housewives. I went berry picking, where the tinker girls swayed between the lines of fruit with woven baskets on their heads. I even tried growing raspberries on a mate's allotment. Cascade Dawn, Octavia, Glen Moy. No girl ever showed. But tonight, there she is. She's walked into the Peacock not 20 minutes since. She's not young, not especially pretty or smartly dressed, but it's her all right. I was nursing my beer in the corner, quiet like. I watched her just for somewhere to rest my eyes. Then she threw her head back to laugh, and I saw the stain on her neck, the raspberry mark, the colour and shape of a ripe Glen Magna. I can hardly believe it. The search is over. Everything will be fine from now on. My life will go back to where it was when I was 18. And the gypsy woman grabbed my hand, stole my luck. I just need to walk over there and claim my raspberry girl.
She looks into his eyes and sees his fear as they are herded into the village square. Men, women, and children. No one is spared. She wants to reach out and take him in her arms, to draw him to her and take him to safety. But she's pushed forward and loses sight of him. He is so young and frail, and her heart yearns to protect him. She looks round at the thugs that are threatening them, her village, her life. They bark orders to their soldiers. The rifle point in her back is hard, and she moves on in terror, too afraid to look back. They reach the wall of the church and are ordered to face around. She makes the sign of the cross and turns. She looks into his eyes once more. He is but an arm's length away, near enough to touch, but his eyes are frightened and filled with tears as the order is given, and he lifts his rifle to pull the trigger.
Our last summer at Sycamore Farm tasted of raspberries. The sun warmed the back of my neck between the twin ropes of my pigtails as I teased the berries from their fat white stalks. I let the sharp and the sweet of them mingle on my tongue. My sister says we didn't hide in the berry bushes to take the fruit. We were there to escape our mother's tears, our father's temper. I don't remember that. I do remember my father's goodbye kiss, soft as raspberries over the parting on the top of my head, the sharp and the sweet of it.